The right and left hemisphere are only connected by a little bit of brain. This is called the corpus callosum, and this is used for the right and left hemisphere to communicate. Since the right hemisphere operate different parts of the body and thought processes, the right brain controls non-verbal memory, spatial awareness, the right side of your body, creativity, and a few more. While the left hemisphere controls voice, the left side of your body, analytical thinking, and is better at logical things like readying and writing. Each hemisphere also has their own eye, which is important to note when testing split-brain patients. The right and left hemisphere work together to create one singular brain, but only connected by a small strand. This is cut by a doctor if you have severe epilepsy. Doctors do this to lower the spread of seizure activity. Once the brain is cut in half, you wouldn't notice much behavior changes in one's behavior, but when doing a test like showing a Rubik's Cube only in front of the right eye on split-brain patients, they wouldn't verbally be able to say what they are seeing since the right hemisphere doesn't control voice, and can't contact the left hemisphere to say it since the cord between the hemispheres has been cut. Another example is when someone who is split-brained is writing with their left hand. Sometimes their right hand might start to try to help the left hand draw, yet the patient doesn't want to consciously have it help. But if the brains cannot communicate with each other and each is separate from one another, where does the original's person before the surgery lay after the surgery when their communication is cut? This is a question that can be quite hard to answer since scientists don't have a very clear idea on what consciousness even is. Even though we don't know for sure, we can make some good estimates. The first one is that they have different consciousness in either hemisphere. This would make sense to most people since each side of the brain has no contact with the other, so how would consciousness come from two separate objects, since the cerebral cortex is in both hemispheres? Since the cerebral cortex is partly in both hemispheres, a lot of people would think that consciousness would have to go in both sides of the brains to work, but this isn't entirely true since certain parts of the brain can take over other parts if that other part is missing or damaged. But a lot of neurologists think not. A psychologist named Yair Pinto did a study with split-brained people's perception and came up the conclusion that it was one singular consciousness even though the two parts didn't interact with each other. But if it is one consciousness and the brains aren't attached, what if you moved one half of the brain into a different brain while the other half of the brain stays and has a new half brain to help it? Technically, since the consciousness can connect without physical connections, then wouldn't the one consciousness be between two bodies? Well, this is an interesting thought experiment, but doesn't have one straight answer. Theory number one, the bodies have their same own consciousness from before, even though not the same brain. Theory number two, shared consciousness. This means that there would be two consciousnesses in each body, and each consciousness would be spread across two bodies, as if you can feel and control the left side of your body but the right side of your friend's body, making some interesting thought experiments. But we can't know for sure since scientists still haven't figured out what consciousness is yet. But when we do understand consciousness, we could maybe even connect our consciousness to a computer, or maybe we're already in a computer and we don't know it.